You guys have so much nice stuff to say about each other.
Man, for real.
We never have anything nice to say about each
Yeah,
other.
we just complain to each other all the time. It's like, oh,
Hey,
we gotta
you know
do
what?
this shit.
Misery loves company. That works as well.
Yeah.
Welcome to The Worst Asian Podcast, where a couple Asian American millennials give you our shitty opinions on all things Asian. My name is Lingjie. I'm here with my co-host, Ben.
I love you.
Okay, I love you too, I guess.
I love you.
That's how we're starting off today. You're going to pour tea and make a lot of noise right now.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I don't hear the tea pouring from the microphone.
It's an art.
It's an art, my ass. You just spilled it all over this.
I spilled it all over the equipment. My bad.
Anyways, let's try to get serious for a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
A lot of what we talk about here on the podcast is in relation to the Asian American diaspora. Specifically over the past 2 years, even before we started this podcast, a lot of negative shit has been occurring in our community.
Yeah, we try to shed light on the positive things on life.
Right.
But unfortunately, there are ongoing issues.
Yeah, we try to do our part, but we do like a half-ass approach here.
Yeah.
Not because of a lack of wanting to, but just because we're half-ass people in general.
Yeah.
We have someone on the podcast today who is not a half-ass person, someone that's doing a lot of good for the community.
Mm-hmm.
She is the CEO and co-founder of Hate is a Virus, and all-around amazing person.
Yes.
Let's give it up for Tammy Cho.
Woo! Thank you for joining us.
How you doing today?
Thanks so much for having me on this podcast. I'm doing well. How are you?
We're doing good.
So in the process of trying to get caffeinated, yes.
Tammy, for those that are just listening, is wearing a very legit gamer set of headphones right now.
Yes. You could find her Twitch channel afterwards. You can send the info, if you like,
I guess for the listeners out there, you want to give them a quick intro on yourself and what do you do?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I am Tammy Cho. I go by she, her, hers pronouns. I'm co-founder and CEO of Hate is a Virus. We're aiming to cultivate a vibrant community of AAPI change makers, especially across industries as well as generations. And I'm based in Los Angeles, California.
I have someone in the background and I want to make sure I introduce him now so you guys aren't stunned when you hear a mystery fourth voice. It's not just a random lurker on the internet or someone that's tapped into this stream.
How did he hack into this meeting?
You know what? It should be plot twist that I've always been in every single episode of your guys's, and I just decided this time I will speak up.
After 1 year, the lurker that's always been in the background.
I fucking knew it. I had a feeling.
It's finally here. Let's give it up for Raymond Luu.
Yo.
Yay. What's up, Al? What's up, everyone? Good to be on the Worst Asian Pod. Finally.
Finally. I know. In the flesh, man.
Okay. Tammy, I guess you want to take us back to where things all started in 2020. What events led up to the creation of Hate is a Virus?
Oh man, so much has happened since then. So Hate is a Virus first started back in March of 2020, and it really formed in response to the initial spike in hate we were seeing affecting our Asian American community. We were seeing small businesses experiencing up to an 80% drop in business. And this was even before government was mandating lockdowns, right? And so initially, it actually started as a local initiative to support those small businesses by organizing local food crawls. My co-founder, Michelle Hanabusa, kickstarted that process off. And then fast forward to a week into that, lockdown happened. And so at that point, obviously there was still so much of these issues going on, but we couldn't do these food crawls anymore to support our small businesses. So we figured out, what can we do next? And that's when we really looked towards the digital mediums and organized and launched our digital campaign using hashtag Hate is a Virus.
Did you have any prior experience with doing something like this, like activism and stuff like that?
Yeah, I did. So prior to Hate is a Virus, I also did work on a nonprofit called Better Brave. It's something that I launched back in 2017 based on my own experiences as a woman in tech at the time. It was efforts addressing a lot of the stuff that happened with the Me Too movement, a lot of the workplace harassment, discrimination that was going on. And so I was definitely able to pull some of the learnings from that experience into this.
Nice. And Ray, when did you jump on board with all this?
I started with Hate is a Virus, I believe it was around April of 2021. April 2021. But prior to that, obviously, I think if you're on social media, on Instagram, you definitely heard of Hate is a Virus, especially as it was trending during the spike of anti-Asian hate crimes. And, it was great because not only was the messaging so important to kind of highlight these issues that was happening in our community, but personally for me, I just felt like the branding of it and the creativity of it was captivating. And that's oftentimes, one of the things that captures a lot of people's attention. So I had heard about it. And then I think a friend of mine who I volunteered with before in another organization called Project by Project. And I had been a part of that nonprofit organization since 2018.
Oh, wow.
And his name is Tristan, and he's the VP of development for our organization today. But then I also had another friend her name was Annie. And so she reached out to me and said, hey, our organization is growing. We're looking for some operational support because I specialize in operations at Project by Project. And so if you could come on board and, help out a little bit, especially with like the fundraising efforts, but just in general operations. And I said, sure, I'll think about it. Cause at the time I was still doing Real Asian Podcast, my own podcast, working full time and still kind of being a part of Project by Project. But I knew in my head I was kind of closing out. I just wanted to finish out the year. But around April, I decided to join because I wanted to, they were doing a lot of amazing things and I wanted to be a part of it. So at one point I was juggling 2 nonprofits, a podcast, and a day job in 2021.
Big flex on your part.
I had zero social life. I was literally in front of the screen the whole time. But since then, it's been great getting to know everyone in the organization, getting to know Michelle and Tammy and following their leadership and getting to just know them as people. I think oftentimes as you see these movements in organizations, you just kind of know them as organizations. But once you get to know the people, you kind of have a little bit closer tie and personalization with them. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm no longer part of Project by Project, by the way. I've after 2021, I was like, okay, I need to like slim down my
Ease
life.
things up a little bit. Too much on a plate altogether.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
a big workload. I'm gonna put you on the spot, Ray. You have Tammy here right in front of you. How is Tammy as boss?
Ooh.
Let's see.
I'm watching. No.
What's it? Tammy, mute it right now.
Ray's gonna suddenly cut off right now. He's gonna lose internet connection. No Wi-Fi.
Hold on, Kat. Hold on. Let me pull up the doc that Tammy sent me to say. 1 second. Hold on. No, joking aside, Tammy is what I really value most about Tammy's leadership is that she really does kind of engage with every one of our team members, like on a very personal level. She takes time to get to know them and is respectful of everyone's time, capacity, mental space. So she is a very caring and I think compassionate leader. And, for someone who's co-founded and a CEO of an organization like ours, there is a risk of kind of letting it kind of get to your head, but Tammy is not like that at all. And you could see that in the public space when she does interviews and she does talks, but she's very much the same, like behind closed doors when we do have our team meetings. And so she's always tried to make sure that, everyone is on board with things and getting everyone's input, not only the directors, but from top down. And so I think that's one of the things that I really value most of Tammy. And she's also very honest in terms of like things that she personally would like for us to work on as an organization and what she would like to work on as a leadership. So that shows humility and modesty, really. And I pick up on those things. I don't know. I think I've never told you that in your face, Tammy.
We just created a moment.
Thank you, Ray.
I was gonna say that was beautiful.
Tammy, did I get the script right?
You did. Thank you for reading it. You read it beautifully.
My God, that was Oscar worthy.
We
Good
gave
job,
Ray that
Raymond.
question way beforehand, so he had an entire week to script this up for you.
My God.
Thank you. I'll take my $20 now.
It's good to hear because sometimes you see these big foundations and you see these big public figures that are the head of the foundations, and I'm always skeptical as to what they are actually like behind the scenes. Clearly, in front of the camera, in front of the mic, they have to act a certain way. So it's good to hear that Tammy is the same way on air and not on air as well. Pivoting a little bit, how big of a factor do you think the fact that the world that we live in now, the digital world, social media as a whole, with you, Tammy, especially, your husband is involved with the whole internet as well, right? How big of a factor was all of the social media in terms of helping you guys grow?
Yeah, it played a huge role. But can I jump in and add something real quick to the last question? Because I also do,
Okay,
I do genuinely also want to acknowledge that so much of what we built for the organization is a testament to the team, including Ray here, among others. I think when you think about, we all got together, and this relates to the next question too, when the bulk of the work that we did started once lockdown happened, which meant that, we really didn't have a chance to see each other in person. We all connected through like social media. I DM'd Michelle through Instagram, right? And it really was a connection that was formed online. And the fact that as people, as a community who has never met in person, we were willing for the cause to stay on Zoom calls for like countless hours.
That's true.
Ray put together these incredible Harvard Business Review style graphics to help us organize as an organization. The fact that everyone was really able to
squares
step
and lines.
up.
That's the secret.
Yeah, beautiful
He's
squares and
blushing right
lines.
now.
I know. Yeah, but we really wouldn't be where we are without the team. So I just wanted to name that.
You guys have so much nice stuff to say about each other.
Yeah, for real.
We never have anything nice to say about each other.
we just complain to each other all the time. It's like,
Hey,
we gotta
you know
do
what?
this shit.
Misery loves company. That works as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tammy, you
Yeah.
were saying?
Yeah. Oh no, that was it on that piece. And then in terms of the role of digital and social media on our organization, yes, such an important role. I think not only with the nature of the lockdown, I think people were looking towards these digital mediums, but when it comes to a lot of the movement work, I think it unlocked this whole new world for how people could engage with social justice work, right? Because I think in the past, if you wanted to learn about these issues, you would have to have either learn it in school, which, as we all know, these topics are really not covered as much in school, or have dialogue with your family as well, or in your friends. But even then, culturally, oftentimes, not all of us have families, right, that talk about these different types of issues.
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah. And so I think when the power of social media, I think Black Lives Matter movement contributed to this as well, but really unlocked how you can use social media to highlight some of these deeper topics and more nuanced conversations and issues, right? And so from there, for folks who are newer to the movement, who might be a little bit scared about, what to say or how to talk about these issues, really had a medium that was unlocked for where they can do that internal learning to then have the confidence to start taking other types of actions around this movement.
Also, what we've experienced as a growing organization, and we're still very much young and growing. Like, we were born in a digital age, and so the language of social media and hashtags and analytics and impressions and all these comments and how to engage the younger-ish generation, or maybe the more tech-savvy generation is a more appropriate way to say. It was natural for us to kind of feel comfortable putting out content that a lot of people tend to gravitate towards. At the same time, though, what we always often have internally as an organization is that, we don't want to make it seem like we're the new and improved way of nonprofitism and volunteering and advocacy, because there are organizations that have been doing it for so long, way before.
And you guys can always coexist together.
Yeah.
And we can always coexist. But the thing about it is that oftentimes, especially the casual activist or the accidental activist, which is now a term, like someone who's very engaged but hasn't always been engaged in social issues, they often sometimes see there's Haters of Virus, they're doing something new and exciting, and they've always been doing the work. And we often sometimes have to remind people, there are organizations who've been doing it for way longer, for decades, literally decades, who've been doing it for so long. Let's not forget about them, because they've laid the groundwork, the foundation to allow us, especially when it comes from pulling from history and education, to allow us to learn from the lessons that they learned and working together. Like you said, Lingjie, it's working together, not saying that we're better than other organizations, because I think that's something that's quite unique within the Asian community as well, is that even within the Asian community, there's subsegments of Asians. You have the East Asians, South Asians, Southeast Asians, and sometimes there's level of differences that.
Yeah, exactly. We each have our own beliefs. We each have our own specific causes that we would rather focus more on. I've always been curious because there have been other companies, not companies, other foundations that have been created during these past couple of years that do a similar goal or have a similar mission to what you guys do as well. Have you been able to coexist in that space, in that same digital space with them without stepping on each other's feet?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think oftentimes at the start of movements like these, often there is that question of, are we stepping on each other's toes? How do we approach movements that are similar? And I think something we come to realize is that in a way that's operating from the scarcity mindset, right? Of, oh, there's limited resources. We're all kind of fighting each other to get access to those resources. And less so thinking about that abundant mindset of how do we actually make that pie bigger, so that, it is so important for each of our organizations to have access to resources to carry out this work, right? Because there are millions of Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders in this country, and wanting to acknowledge that. And so I think that's where we've been shifting towards. And I think we've been seeing that movement among other organizations in this space as well, where we're starting to think about, okay, how can we work together, even if there might be some overlap, right? Even if we have shared goals to address ethnic studies or education for our community, how can we inspire our broader community to care about these issues and invest more dollars into this as well?
Have you been able to niche down, I guess, your mission or goals? Has it been a change from when you first started this in 2020 to what you're doing now? Like, are you tailoring things?
Yeah, that's a great question. For us, in terms of our next phase, so stepping back, I think when we first started Heat the Virus, as I mentioned, it was more of that small business focus to be able to give back to those communities. And then as the community needs seemed to shift and we were having broader and broader conversations about racism and hate that affects our communities and other communities of color, we have broadened our scope as an organization, and also created an organization, a nonprofit, around this work. And so the key areas that we're really focused on is thinking about how can we cultivate an AAPI community who is able to engage with this type of work in a joyous and sustainable way, right? And part of our effort in doing that is making this work a lot more personal. So really helping our community understand, okay, what is the historical context for these issues? What are some lessons I can learn about my heritage, my identity, and our history that plays a role in some of these issues? And then also thinking about, we all have very different, unique skill sets, right? So some of us might be more outspoken. We're out there at the rallies, speaking up, protesting, right? But others of us might be more introverted or more of a reflector or an artist, and that's the way that we want to engage in this work. And that's also beautiful and very much needed as well, right? And so as an organization, what we're hoping to do is, one, really helping people find their place in this work and do it sustainably. And then the second piece that we also really want to focus on is how can we also encourage more dialogue and education across our communities, especially across generations, right? Ray touched on this as well, but there are so many incredible organizations, organizers, leaders that have been doing this work and have been grinding away long before mainstream media coverage of this, right? And then we have this new generation of change makers who are amped up from seeing the recent news and asking, like, how can we get involved with this movement? And so what we're really hoping to do is to bridge these different communities together so that we can really work together in pushing this movement forward.
So can I ask you then, with everything that's going on, you see the shocking graphic stuff on the news. Do you feel like that actually accelerated as Asians to step up their game? Like, have you noticed something like that?
Graphic headlines always sell.
You're right.
That's basically the news, right? It's just whatever is most graphic at that time, whatever catches your eyeballs. But it does kind of like light a fire under people's asses sometimes to actually do something.
I agree.
Have you found that to be true?
My heart feels heavy just thinking about it.
Right.
I do think in many ways, those graphic headlines did catalyze people to think about these issues and realize that this is a problem that we need to tackle. And it's so unfortunate that's the case, right? And it's essentially trauma porn that we're constantly seeing and being exposed to a lot of these cases. I think something as many in our community want to move towards is not necessarily needing to be exposed to these graphic headlines in order to feel compelled to be a part of the change, right? Because this is a reality, and this has been a reality before the mainstream coverage of these issues, especially for those who are part of the community and are familiar. We have our own personal experiences navigating some of these issues. It's triggering to see those headlines and traumatic to see those headlines. And so
It is.
we want to definitely move away from just being constantly exposed to these headlines and move to a place where we can just acknowledge that this is a major issue that we need to tackle.
You have any thoughts on this, Ray?
Yeah, I do. I have so many thoughts on this. I think the way that Tammy termed it is pretty much accurate. It's like trauma porn or doom scrolling. And like if I'm an Instagram user and I'm scrolling through and I go down this rabbit hole of seeing these horrific surveillance videos of Asian people and old Asian people being attacked, it does warp your mind a little bit to make you think like we're constantly under attack. And in a macro sense, in a societal sense, I want to say like there are issues in our community, but I'm personally just someone who likes to think I don't want to live my life and anytime I step out the door, there's a concern that someone's going to jump me from behind. Is there a legitimate, like, do we have that thought nowadays?
Maybe
Unfortunately,
so.
that is true, but I choose not to live my life in fear, and I would hope that other people do so too. But at the same time, if you are someone who needs to be reminded of those things in order for you to get up out of your seat and, volunteer or donate money or be vocal, then do so. I would just advise people for your own mental health, don't just get like sucked up into it and thinking like, oh my God, like we're the most, because I think the risk is that some people, and I've had friends say like, oh, we're the most attacked community in America. I'm like, let's not go that far. Like we
can't just live in our own little bubble.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. You kind of form yourself a little bubble. And then it goes into the whole like social media algorithm thing,
right.
because like you clicked on one video and you watched one video and then it feeds you into that because, we're in an attention economy. So personally for me, my personal opinion is like, I think at the start of it, I watch those videos. If it does come up and it's something that's like really trending, I'll maybe watch it once, but I won't like sit there and watch multiple videos. And sometimes I don't even watch it. Like sometimes I'll read the headline. It's like, 70-year-old woman attacked in San Francisco, Chinatown. Like I don't need to see that the wording in the headline itself is already bad enough. And I've seen enough videos to know that our community is at risk at times.
And that's not to say you don't care about that particular occurrence.
Right.
It's just that you know what's going on just based off the major headlines, and you watching that video doesn't necessarily help you in any way.
Yeah. A couple additional things I would love to name about that too is oftentimes I think when we see mainstream media coverage or see a lot of this content on social media, it feels like that's the reality of the situation. But I think it's also important to recognize that sometimes it doesn't capture the whole picture. So for instance, a lot of times the headlines, I think there's a study conducted on this as well, but the majority of headlines around the AAPI community, hate crimes, feature a Black perpetrator. And the reality is that, unfortunately, the reality is that the majority of perpetrators are not Black. They're actually white men. And so those are narratives that are not necessarily captured and fosters sentiments like anti-Blackness within our community, and want to make sure that we're able to acknowledge some of that, right? And then the other piece too is Stop AAPI Hate published a report on this as well. But if you look at the violence against our AAPI community, it actually spans beyond the hate crimes as well. So hate crimes is definitely an issue that affects our Asian American community, but there are also, unfortunately, a whole breadth of other types of violence, whether it's something as subtle as microaggressions in the workplace that people experience to kids getting bullied in schools, right? And so I encourage people to start looking at some of those broader issues as well to address, because it's only once we address those larger systemic issues too, are we going to be able to really help our AAPI community thrive?
Yeah, for sure. Going back to what you said before about not just seeing the headlines or stuff on social media and having that or thinking that's indicative of what something is as a whole. We always tell people who come to New York or who want to visit New York.
Yeah.
They very often over the past year or so have asked, hey, is it safe to come to New York now? Or they're hesitant to come to New York because of what they see in the news and everything. And as to lifelong New Yorkers, I don't want to say that we just have thicker skin here, but I always tell people, yes, there are things happening, but it's not to say that every time you step out, you're in immediate danger of that happening here in New York. And I encourage people to still come visit New York. Should they be maybe a little bit more aware? Should they take certain small precautionary measures? Yes, of course.
Definitely.
Whatever makes you feel safe. And this is true of, I'm sure, not just New York City, but other places where you see lots of headlines.
Yeah, it shouldn't handicap you from trying to live your life.
Yeah. One question that kind of ties into the whole social media thing, don't take this the wrong way. I've seen this across the internet a lot. A lot of these movements, not just within our community, people have like dubbed it more of a hashtag movement. How do we prove to those skeptics that you guys are more than just that?
Thanks for asking that question. It's something we've internally talked about quite a few times as well. And yeah, I think the hashtag movement component is just the first step, right, in this work. It was the role of that hashtag campaign was really to raise awareness of these issues and try to reach the mainstream media coverage of that. And I think there's still more work to be done on that front, but I think in some ways we hit that goal with our initial campaign. And so the question that we wanted to move towards is, okay, how do we address the questions that people are asking us about why is this happening and what can we do about it? And so in that effort, I think as an organization, we've been seeing this not only with our organization, but other organizations that started around the same time too, but really shifting towards that piece of how can we actually foster more dialogue and education around this. And so there's deeper forms of engagement that we have been building out as an organization, whether it's we've been hosting conversations at different corporations, for instance, to talk about microaggressions in the workplace, specific to how it affects AAPI folks, and especially AAPI women as well. We have our Changemaker Summit that happens every October for AAPI youth. We do that in partnership with Stop AAPI Hate and Act to Change. And we bring in speakers like Helen Zia, the OG activist, Ashlyn So. She was like an 11-year-old fashion designer at the time, I believe. I may have her age wrong there, but super young and super talented. And just being able to bring these different voices to the table and have conversations about this, right? Addressing some of those questions for people who might feel discouraged. Like, okay, so now that mainstream media is not covering this, is there progress actually happening? And the answer is yes, right? And so how can we make that a bit more visible to the broader community is, I think, something that we're trying to focus on next. Speaking
of like real tangible things, you guys have been able to raise over $1 million so far. That is real tangible hard currencies. That's a lot of Benjamins.
That's a lot more.
What have you guys been able to accomplish with that money, or what are you planning to do with that money going forward?
Yeah. Before I start, Ray, did you want to add something?
No, I was going to answer the currency. And that's one of the things that I feel like oftentimes like that doesn't get brought up a lot, and the hashtag is very like engaging, right? And people can share it on their social medias. But what a lot of people don't know is that we do a lot of grantee work, and we have a lot of grantees. So that money that we raise contributes to other organizations. And that's, again, kind of ties back to building that bridge with organizations who've been doing it for a very long time. And then also what we always try to keep in mind, and it's like, yes, we have the ability, and I view it as a strength of being able to reach out to the masses and get people to donate to our organization. We also understand that currency, that money, those funds should be distributed, and we do distribute it to organizations who specialize in, South Asian work, in Southeast Asian work, in Hmong communities, in communities that we can't say like we know or we're the expert in the work that they do, because we're not. Like, that's truth be told. Not all of us are Southeast Asian. We're not a Southeast Asian organization. We're a mix of different Asians, but we reach out to those organizations to connect with them. And we have an amazing internal team, a fund manager, and we have advisory council to kind of have those internal discussions to say, let's review and think about the work that these amazing people are doing and provide them the means to continue the work that they're doing. And I think for us, like, that's what we specialize in, and what we are proud of is that we're able to raise these funds. And, I wasn't around in the first, I think, raise $1 million, but seeing...
If you were there, they could have gone to $2 million, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Possibly.
That's the next goal. That's a really great highlight of what you accomplished. Was there ever like some like really dark times or like lowlights when you're like doing any of this, by the way?
I mean, from my perspective, like, not necessarily like lowlights, but I think it's the daily grind of just making sure we're constantly doing what our mission and our values are keeping in check. It's not necessarily lowlights too. I think it's just like the grind of being in a nonprofit organization, which a lot of people don't tend to understand when they want to volunteer. And and I'm just 100% honest with friends or acquaintances or colleagues that want to volunteer more. I tell them both sides of it. You obviously get the good sides of being able to do meaningful work and impactful work. At the other side of it, it's work. It's a grind. Like if you want to be able to, exactly, if you want to be able to have an impact and make good effort, you want to put in the hours for it. And a lot of people in our organization have put in the hours for it, hours. And you won't have successes all the time. Sometimes some programs don't work. Sometimes we don't raise as much money as we'd like to. And that's just the reality. And I do think a lot of organizations kind of go through that.
Yeah. And I think just to add to that too, I think it is definitely a grind. And I think that's something that we've taken to heart over this past year, especially because I think when we first started, it was a response to the community. And then over the last 2 years, it's really been, okay, constant events in our community that were really unfortunate, tragic events. And the community was asking for support, right? And as an organization built to serve the community, we were trying to respond as quickly as possible. And in a lot of ways, I don't think we were taking care of ourselves in that process either. And so
Got you.
There was a lot of burnout across our team. Changemakers last year, there was a lot of work and heart and soul put into that, but people were super exhausted after that. And I think something that we try to prioritize going into this year is really thinking about, okay, how do we think about the sustainability of the organization, but also our team members and taking care of their health, right? We still have stretches where we're grinding hard, but if people do need to take some time off or take a break from some of this work, we really do want to encourage that, right? Because this is work that's going to take like decades to come to address. It's definitely a marathon and not a sprint. And so how do we pace ourselves and continue to find joy and sustainability in this work?
That is so true. That's like when you're on an airplane and they tell you if the airplane's falling down, make sure you cover your face first, get yourself some oxygen before you can take care of the people next to you, right? It's like the same thing too. You guys are so focused on the goal sometimes, and I'm sure that's true for most non-for-profits as well. You're so focused on the fixed goal that sometimes you forget to take care of yourself and the people around you so that you can keep going forward with all this.
Right.
2 years now, and I know I kind of touched base on this before. Has anything changed in terms of your perspectives on how the world is?
I would say for my end, I'm feeling very hopeful still, even with everything that has been going on. Sometimes I feel like, especially in this work, it's hard to see change right away. It's not always immediate, right? And sometimes that can feel really discouraging, especially given how rough some of these incidents are. But one story that comes to mind actually is Ray alluded to our Raise a Million campaign. But when we first started, we actually launched a campaign called Raise a Million, which is literally our effort to raise $1 million to give back to our AAPI community. It was the precursor to Community Action Fund. And when we first launched that fundraiser, I think over the course of a year, we raised a total of $30,000 towards our Raise a Million goal. And what we were hearing from a lot of the different corporations we were talking to for funding were things like, we actually already set our budget for Lunar New Year and API Heritage Month. Please come back to us during a different quarter, right? And little things like that. Or even the questions that I was being asked in interviews sometimes were, is this really happening to the Asian American community? Has this always been happening, or is this just happening? And so,
wow. That's pretty shocking.
I know. And then, fast forward to even just this past year for the Community Action Fund, when we relaunched that as a new initiative, again, with that same goal of raising $1 million, we raised that in less than 6 months. We hit our goal in less than 6 months.
That's crazy.
God damn.
Yeah, I know.
Take that, budget people.
I know, yeah. And also, thank you, budget people, for...
Can you attribute that quick 6 months to like anything in particular that you did differently, or
yeah,
or was it just a timing thing, you think?
It's not luck. It's definitely not luck.
Hey, no, I do feel like it's a combination of just being able to reach more folks and folks feeling like there's a type of urgency. Again, I attribute it to some of the coverage that we've been getting. Yes, it doesn't mean like it just started happening, but more eyeballs and ears are starting to pay attention to it. And so people tend to react to it and they want to help. And so they donate it. And, for us as an organization, we're like happy to accept those funds. Like, hey, if you feel like the most that you can do is donating, which oftentimes is very, very good. Like a lot of people say, how do I help? Well, donating to an organization is the best way to do it sometimes, is because allow organizations to take those resources and execute on the work that they're committed to doing. I think it's also what I really appreciate in the last 2 years, if you will, is that it does feel like us as an Asian community from all types are starting to be a lot more aware and a lot more cognizant of our ethnicities, our cultures, and celebrating it a lot more and being respectful of other cultures and communities. You mentioned like anti-Blackness and colorism within our Asian community. It was something that I was not privy to early on when I was a young kid, but as I got more into this nonprofit work, I learned more about that stuff. And now it's like, oh, okay, like I didn't realize it before. And I think a lot more people are realizing it now. And that does lead into a more community-based, like more having a solidarity with other communities. For me, I think that's like been the overarching positive. Long ways to go, long road ahead for sure. But when you look back and you think about how have I changed, and I ask everyone to think about this, like how have I changed in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 X amount of years? And if you can point to something, then already that's progress, because everyone else is kind of feeling the same thing.
Yeah. Tammy, do you have anything else to add on to that?
Yeah, I think that was beautifully said. And I think something that we're also thinking about just as an organization too is how can we bring more transparency and visibility into the impact that we're having? I think that's definitely an area that we're trying to improve upon. And I know it's a shared challenge with a lot of nonprofit organizations, because sometimes when you're executing the programs, it's hard to allocate resources to then illustrating what that looks like. But with the funding that we raised, we've already been able to give out over $700,000 in grants so far to over 66 organizations across the nation. We made sure to put an emphasis on granting money to the South, the Midwest, to underrepresented API communities, the Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian communities, South Asian, Southeast communities, with the help of our advisory council. This is so important too, because less than 0.2% of philanthropic funding goes to AAPI organizations in the nation.
0.2, you said?
That's worse. That's worse than skim milk.
That's worse than skim milk, yes.
Yeah.
It's lower than skim milk percentage.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Man, we're the skim milk of organizations.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is kind of crazy, though.
Yeah.
On one side, I'm very surprised. On the other, I'm not surprised.
Dude, that's almost zero.
I know.
Jeez,
especially
Christ.
Given the population, how many Asian American Pacific Islander are in this country. And so, definitely want to push for that more. And then also adding to what Ray said, the dollars are super, super important. But we also want to find ways for our community to get even more involved with these organizations, right? Whether it's volunteering with these organizations or even amplifying the work that they do, or maybe for content creators, they can create content about some of these organizations who don't necessarily have access to socials.
Good ideas.
And so,
great ideas.
There's so many different ways people can get involved and want to nurture that.
Great segue right there. Speaking of creating content,
you
guys have finally branched out to what every millennial has. Everyone of our age seems to have a podcast.
Yeah.
And it's actually 75% of the people in this conversation right now have a podcast.
That is true.
Unless you have a secret podcast, Tammy, that we don't know about.
Make it 100.
Did you have one?
I actually do or did.
Do you?
100%.
100.
Yeah.
Call spade.
Oh my
there
gosh.
You go.
It's a trend.
Yeah.
Podcasting is a great way of amplifying the voices of others.
Yes.
You have your own podcast that branched off. Ray, you want to give us some information on that?
Yeah. So we've been kind of noodling on this idea for a while. And Catherine is the creator of the podcast. She wanted to expand Real Talk Tuesday, which is the IG Live talk that we have on our Instagram. And, the genesis of the idea is her wanting to have more of a deeper, lengthier conversation with folks and guests, because on IG Live, you're limited to really only 20 to 30 minutes or so. And I also think the difference between the live stream and the podcast is that, the live stream, you kind of have this sense of like there's eyeballs watching you. So, you feel like you do have to have some kind of a facade, not to say that everyone that comes onto the episode is fake or anything like that, but you come in with an understanding that there's going to be some people live watching you. With a podcast, it's more of like a more candid conversation, even though it is being recorded. So you do have to kind of get over that mental hurdle. But with a podcast, you kind of feel a little bit more, you can be a little bit more candid. And so the podcast is really an opportunity for us to have, pun intended, unfiltered conversations. Therefore, the name is called Real Talk Unfiltered. And it's just an opportunity for us to dive deeper into the topics that the guests want to talk about. One of the things that we try to really emphasize is that we don't cut we don't cut any like awkward or uncomfortable segments that we feel like, oh, maybe this might not be taken well or received well by some listeners. I think we keep that all in. Obviously, it's edited. It's not like we take the raw audio and just upload it. It's edited in a way to where it's listenable and enjoyable, but the conversations are really kept in there, and it can kind of go, and we let the guests talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. They could, we've had guests who've gotten really emotional on the podcast and on the episode because we kind of go down this emotional journey of talking about, APIs and formerly incarcerated APIs or social justice issues as artists. And, all of that is attributed to Catherine's vision of making sure the guest is the highlight and the main draw for the podcast. For myself, I just, you guys know that I just enjoyed producing podcasts.
You have your own podcast, and you can plug your podcast.
Yep.
Real Asian Podcast. Ray gets very deep on movies, things in cinema, to a level that Ben and I cannot at all whatsoever.
Great fucking name, by the way. I gotta say,
Thank you.
I know, I love it.
Yeah,
I enjoy your guys' podcast as well.
Thank you.
If I want to just have a good time, your guys' podcast is definitely one of the options.
Like those loud ass people at the back of the bar that just keep screaming at each other, but you can't stop listening to them.
Yeah, that's us. Exactly. We
That's basically us.
apologize.
But everyone check it out. I'll have links to absolutely everything down in the box below. Before we get to my favorite segment of the podcast, do you guys have anything else you want to talk about today in regards to the actual foundation itself?
Yeah, I think if people want to get involved with Hate is a Virus, the organization, go to hateisavirus.org. We have donation links there as well. We're always fundraising, not necessarily by campaigns, but check out, all the stuff that we're doing. We do have, I don't know if we can cut. Tammy, can I talk about the impact report? Is that coming out?
Yeah, yes, please. Yeah.
We do have an impact report coming out. So any listeners out there kind of wondering what we do, go to our website, and then how we do it and what type of work and the impact that we've done. We're coming out with the impact report soon to show all the programs and all the money that we've donated.
Oh, that's the transparency that Tammy was talking about before, right?
Yeah.
Great. Tammy, anything?
I think that's it on
Don't
my
feel
end.
pressured.
Yeah.
Go play Valorant. Is that what you wanted to say?
Go play
She's
Valorant
like,
right now.
Let's move on to my favorite segment of the whole podcast. At the end of every podcast, no matter who the hell is on, we do a segment called Ranting and Raving. It's just a lighthearted way for us to end every episode by venting and bitching about something in our lives.
Oh man, I couldn't wait for this.
Ben and I will start this off just so you guys can have a moment to find something frustrating in your lives to also bitch about.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this away.
Go.
Free Wi-Fi. I go to a lot of places where there is free Wi-Fi. I want to make this point very clear. I'm glad that a place is giving me free Wi-Fi, whether it's a hotel, a theme park, a cafe, yada, yada. I'm very, very thankful for that.
Okay.
What I am not thankful for is the type of Wi-Fi, the free Wi-Fi, where they make you literally sign up for an account.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Where you have to log in, make an account, give them your social security, give them your credit score,
Upload your driver's license.
my mother's maiden name, all that jazz, just so I can get free Wi-Fi.
And you got to do the thing where it's like, which one's a tractor? You got to click on
And
the
I
pictures.
can't tell.
Oh, yeah. The security check.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's like, am I a robot? I hope not.
And then when you get it wrong, you're like, oh shit, am I a robot?
Yeah,
oh my God, this whole time.
Most of the places, just, you click something, you read terms of whatever, you agree to something, bam, boom, you're done. 2 clicks, you're good, right? Free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and then Russia has your phone. That's all. Yeah, it's easy. Yeah, Putin's on it right now as we speak.
Where did this happen? I think I was at Disney World being stuck in Disney World, being stuck. I use the word stuck. Being
Yeah, I was
stuck
gonna
in
say,
Disney World.
you're
I needed to
stuck.
distract my brain at
Not
times.
prison, Disney World.
So I needed
but
to go
yes.
on like social media or check the news or something. And I remember I had to use a burner email account. How
Just yeah.
about you,
Huh?
Ben? What do you got this week?
Daylight savings time is approaching. I'm not a big fan, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, when it gets dark at like 5, it's just depressing.
So you don't like it when it's 4 o'clock and turning dark?
No, it's depressing, dude. It's like, oh, great. Like, I'm a summer guy. That's why. I like it when it's
You like
sunny
the
out.
sun,
I feel
you like
that.
the sunny days, the
Same.
brightness.
I like the 8 o'clock sunset,
Yes.
Didn't our Senate pass something to get rid of daylight savings, but it died in the House?
They're
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to. And then they're like, no, Benjamin Franklin wouldn't want that. I was like, all right, great. Sure.
I have no idea what that has to do with anything.
I think he's the one that created it. That's
Did he?
why. I think Benjamin Franklin created that shit.
God damn you, Benjamin Franklin.
Please fact
Also-
check, Ben.
yeah,
I have
also,
no idea if
please,
that's
I
true.
have no idea. I'm just making that shit up. But I'm pretty sure I believe it's that man.
You're gonna get Ben Franklin fans come out
I
to get
know.
you. And, yeah.
I'm gonna get him canceled. Yeah.
Stay tuned for season 2 when we have Benjamin Franklin on the podcast to
Yes.
defend
Yeah,
his
that'd-
claim for daylight savings.
Yeah. He's gonna hear
Oh
it.
man.
Do any of you have anything to vent about?
Sure. I'll kick it off from our side. I have a gaming related one.
Of course, of course.
Of course, yeah. Oh, no
I
surprise.
know. Okay, well, so I guess it's not the lightest of things to rant about, but I've been really annoyed by how toxic games can be.
Oh yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
anytime as a woman, if you use, so some of these games, you got to use voice chat. And if you want to rank up in the game, ideally you would use voice chat so your team can work well together. But
Right,
Mhm.
yeah.
a lot of times it's like, as soon as they hear a woman's voice, they're like, oh, is it a woman on the team? And then they
It's a bunch of
just,
pervs, isn't it?
it's either perverted or they like literally have issues about a woman playing and will like sabotage you in the game.
Oh right.
It's just-
Oh, that's
So-
even worse.
I know.
On
I know.
behalf of men, we are so sorry that we are dumbasses.
We're sorry.
We are Neanderthals. So I apologize about that.
That is toxic. Yeah.
Tammy, when you do get that though, do you go like, yo, you guys can go fuck yourselves? Like, respectfully. Or no, you just mute it.
I just honestly, talking to them doesn't actually help. So I usually mute it. And then
damn.
I know
I
it's
want
super
Tammy to say it.
unfortunate. Yeah.
I want you to.
that takes a lot of willpower just to mute it and like not clap back.
I know. I totally want to all the time. Sometimes I'll like drop in a comment here and there, but yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
You should just like after you kill them, be like, yeah, what's up, son?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. That's it. It's just
I know.
that's it.
It's like you're a
Yeah.
loser.
Yes.
How about you, Ray?
Let's see. This happened to me recently, or over the weekend. I truly do not understand and hate double parkers, and so especially when it's so egregious. Like sometimes you have like the big pickup truck
Yo.
that's like super diagonal and crossing over lines. Like, okay, bro, like I get it. You have a big truck and showing your masculinity or how big your whatever is.
Yeah,
But
or
I just don't
small.
understand it when there's like an empty parking lot when people still do that. Like,
Yes.
I don't get it. Like, it takes maybe like you don't have to be perfect and straight, but when it's so
yeah.
bad and it's an empty parking lot, like you had to do that purposefully. You had to intentionally be like, I want
I am
to
a
double
douchebag.
park. And it's even worse when it's like a small parking lot and it's a popular place and there's
Yeah.
always that one car that like double parks. It just because they have like a Tesla or a BMW or whatever nice car. It's like,
Yeah, they're trying to give themselves some buffer room.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I just absolutely hate it.
You know what's so funny? You're not the first person to bitch about parking. I think we had Stefan Kim, the reporter, on, and he also bitched about
Yeah.
New York cabbies double parking when there's literally like a fire hydrant spot right next to them, but
Yeah.
they're still
Yeah.
somehow double parking.
Yeah, they're like
Yeah.
right behind it, and then
So I guess from
Yeah.
coast to coast, parking is a big thing for everybody.
Yeah.
the etiquette. Yeah, there's driver etiquette, man.
Okay. I hate parking out there in California, by the way. I have bitched about this a lot. But
Yo, it's so bad there.
you just came back from California recently.
Yo,
I don't know how you guys deal with that crap.
Which part of
Yeah.
California?
Hollywood
Oh yeah.
ish.
Yep.
Oh,
Okay.
she's like, oh, duh, Ben, you fucked up there. That's your fault.
Every time I'm in California, I get like a migraine.
Yeah, you guys have to drive everywhere.
You have to drive everywhere.
But Orange
It's a-
County
it's
is a lot easier to drive in and a lot more parking space. So next time.
Okay. All right,
Check
next
out
time.
Orange County.
Mass
The
transit.
OC.
You guys need to step up your mass transit game.
I know. Well, I mean, I live in the Bay Area, so we do have BART, which is like okay. But compared to New York, it's like if I ever was to live out there, I would seriously get rid of my car because there's no need for it.
Yeah.
There's no need for a car here.
You
You
know
can
what?
get anywhere.
If I move to Cali, I'm just gonna row a boat. I think that would be faster at this point. I'm just gonna get a kayak and be like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "I don't even know." The OC apparently. Life hack, guys.
Tammy, Ray, thank you guys for coming on. Great conversation. Really do appreciate it. I was going into this knowing it was going to be a very heavy topic, but I am glad to find out that we still had a very good time talking about it.
Yeah.
Tammy, if anyone listening wants to get involved in any way whatsoever, what's the best resource for them to go to?
Yeah, it would be to connect with us through our website, hateasavirus.org, or on any of our social media channels. We have an Instagram as well as a TikTok, Twitter at hateasavirus.
Great. And donations are through the same page as well, right?
Through our website.
Slide in our DMs. Feel free to DM us.
Yes.
And Ray, the podcast, where can they find the podcast?
Yeah, so Real Talk Unfiltered we're under the Hate is a Virus Instagram. New episodes come out every other Tuesday. Find us on all Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Winamp, Napster, whatever the case may be.
Winamp.
Yeah, you can find us.
What the fucking throwback?
What was it like when something llama's ass?
It was like, yeah, just llamas. I can't do it. Yeah, it was some shit
you know
like
what
that.
I'm talking about,
Yeah.
right? It's like Winamp,
Yeah.
Winamp, something,
The
something
llama.
llama's ass.
Yeah.
I swear this was a thing.
Ray, I love you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Can you still download Winamp?
I have no idea, too.
Why would you?
I don't know.
For the skins. You just need it for the skins.
Yo,
Yeah.
this guy used to do
Yeah.
it all the time. So, yo, check out my new skin.
Yeah. I wish Spotify would do
Wow.
the same thing. You could skin your own app.
Yo,
We're just giving away our ages at this point, so
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like, what's a Winamp?
And I'll shout out my own podcast, Real Asian Podcast. You can check us out on podcast platform as well.
there's a difference. That's Real Asian Podcast, REEL, not REAL. So make sure you guys don't mix those two up. It's real, as in film reel, a physical film reel.
By a real Asian, though.
By a real Asian.
Yes.
By a REAL Asian.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Just to clarify.
I'll have a
Hey,
link
guys.
to his Real Asian Podcast as well down there. If you want to stay up to date what Ben and I are doing on a daily basis, that's Worst Asian Pod on every single social media, because nobody wants to be called Worst Asian anything on the internet. So it's all ours. It's up for grabs for us.
Nice. Way to go.
Links to everything can be found at www.worstasianpod.com. You got anything else, Ben?
Don't drive in Cali. Roll a boat.
Don't double park.
Right.
All right, guys. On behalf of Ray, Tammy, Ben, and myself, take it easy now. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Peace out, y'all.
Bye.